I've been joined in the Two Locks Radio studio by somebody who is a visitor to the Westeros area from year to year, but she's got something special with her this year. It's a book, and it's the author of the book, Gillian Hovell. Hi, Gillian.
Hello.
You've brought a copy of your book in with you, so can you just tell us what it's about?
Certainly, it's called Visiting the Past, and it has a subtitle, A Guide to Finding and Understanding British Archaeology. So that when you're out and about walking in the hills and you come across something that doesn't look natural, you can see by glancing through the book what it's likely to be, what era it's from, and the book will take you right from the Neolithic, from the prehistory, through the different eras. So you're going through from the prehistory to the Roman, to the Dark Ages, to the medieval, and then into the more modern. So It's something for everybody.
And you say for everybody, so it's not for professional archaeologists?
No, certainly not. No, there's none of the jargon. It's Time Team made even simpler. When you're watching Time Team and you go, OK, fine, you're talking about Bronze Age, they don't actually bother to tell you what's going on with the Bronze Age. They might get around to it a little bit. But this will give you what life was like, what was happening in that era, what kind of stuff to expect when you're out and about, and it assumes you know nothing.
Okay, it sounds like a good starting point.
There's no jargon.
Good. Okay, so it's something you'd expect people to read before going out walking, or actually take with them, or what?
You can do both. You can sit down and just read it if you want, cover to cover, but most people, I find, are picking it up and reading a little bit that interests them, and then when they're out and about, and I was in your Gaelic Museum, and I happened to have a copy with me, and my children were saying, yes, this is like something that we saw in your book, and then going and referring to it,
right,
and finding out more about it.
So that must have pleased you.
It pleased me immensely, yes.
Good. Well, I guess the obvious question that rises is there anything in our local area that's featured in the book?
Certainly, you've got a nice house just down the road from where we are now, and you've got prehistoric rock shelters, cave shelters, where they were hiding out and making a shelter for themselves and a home many, many thousands of years ago. That's Red Point, and there's sand.
Okay. Yes. You mentioned the ice house at Flowerdale. I've often wondered what kind of age is that?
Well, you're talking sort of 200 and something years. You're not talking long time ago.
So we're not when we think about archaeology, we're not talking about paleontology and ancient.
No, archaeology can be anything that's really been grassed over or is beginning to fall apart. Anything in the ground. It doesn't have to be desperately old. The book goes right up to World War II.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And of course, there's a fair number of World War II things around here, aren't there?
There's a surprising number of stuff. Yes.
Okay. So does the book cover the whole of the UK?
Yes, it does. England, Scotland, Wales, and touches in Ireland as well, and it will take you through the history as well as what you'll find there. But obviously different areas have different stuff, so slightly different styles, burial grounds and things like that. So it covers that.
Well, mention of those local places. Of course, we've got some local keen archaeologists as well who've been taking photographs recently. Have you seen any of those?
Yes, in fact, Liz Forrest from Kinlochew is, I have to confess, an old school friend of mine.
All right.
And she recently won an archaeology photography competition as well, so her photography is top-notch. And she's helped contribute quite a number of photographs for the book, and it's been a pleasure to have them.
Excellent. So you get Liz's photos as well into the bargain.
Oh, yes, and familiar to all your listeners, of course. So, yes, it was a great pleasure.
Now, I know you're a writer, but you're not a professional archaeologist yourself, are you?
I'm an amateur archaeologist. I'm not professional in that I haven't got the qualifications. I've got Latin and ancient history was my professional qualification, so I have some leanings towards it. And about 6 years ago, I moved from the south up to Yorkshire Dales and joined a little amateur archaeology class, really, which backed up all of the history that I'd done. It's just a hands-on version of what I'd done. And 6 years on, I'm now running an archaeology project, an amateur community archaeology project. We're looking at an Iron Age site, which has medieval features as well later on in it, and covers vast number of ages. So in just a few years, you can pick up an awful lot.
Right. What gave you the idea to write the book?
It was partly because I was going for walks with some of the heritage groups, and somebody was saying, yes, the Bronze Age. Now, did that come before or after the Romans?
Right.
And I thought, now what I think is very basic chronology, we're not actually taught it anymore out in the schools. They used to get taught they taught the Vikings, they taught the Tudors, then a bit about the World War, and nowhere do they actually put one in front of or behind the other. And so unless they've got some concept of it already, they can't grasp that it's 1,000 years difference or something like that. But most adults also don't have that set chronology. And thought, well, there's some very simple stuff that can be laid out, which takes all those questions away.
Right.
And this book aims to do that.
Good. I've had a quick look through the book. You make quite heavy use of type styles and layouts and presentation, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, when you're out walking, you can't go digging it up. The moment you start digging for archaeology, you're destroying it by its very nature. So you're taking the layers away. You're taking its context away. So the book is very strongly saying, do not dig. If you want to dig, go and join an archaeology society that has a professional archaeologist who can keep you on the straight and narrow. Even metal detecting is the same. If you take a bronze item out of the ground, you've lost its context and it's meaningless to historians. You can't find out what it was for, where exactly it was, all of that. So it's very much walking out and about and seeing things, and that can keep you busy for several lifetimes.
I've heard it said that archaeologists out walking can see all sorts of things that might or might not be there.
There is an imaginative school of archaeology, and on our site we have been known to accuse each other of it when somebody gets a little over-poetic about it, and you see a feature in the ground that's a grassed-over semicircle, and you go, oh, it's a furnace. An iron furnace, and in our case it is, because we dig and we check, but sometimes you can't tell things. But this book looks at the things which are fairly obvious.
What are the most interesting things that you've found yourself?
Well, some of it is the Iron Age workings in Yorkshire that we've found. It's just a rough field, a farmer's field. He let our group use it for training purposes, and then one member said, yes, there's iron furnaces here, and we looked at this scrubby bit of land and went, yes, poor dear, of course there is.
Pat, pat.
Yes, it was. And we trudged along and we probed the ground with a stick, and yes, they were stone lined. Then we were trained up for digging, and we dug. And lo and behold, not only were there medieval furnaces, and we had to say, you're quite right, they are furnaces, just little semicircles of stone with burnt signs of burning, and then we found one which had the residue, the slag of it, and lo and behold, it was Iron Age as well that was there. And even better still, there's the hammer scale. Somebody was making tools, and that's really quite rare to find a smithing site. So it's only a couple in the country.
You were really confident then you were in the Iron Age.
Oh, very definite, yes, because of the nature of the residue. It was still full of iron. They hadn't got rid of the iron.
So of course, there are some iron furnaces around in this area, aren't there?
There are. You've got some on the Loch Marie, you've got iron workings. And everywhere you go. On my way here, we stopped at Castle Ardvech, and the little board there says iron working site ? And so I toddled straight over to it. It's our specialist there, much to my children's horror, going, oh no, please. But we went there and had a look, and some animal had been scratching at the ground, which is always a good place to look. And in the soil that had been disturbed, there were pieces of iron slag, the residue. There's no doubt there was metalworking going on. So as simple as that, without digging.
You say it's good to look where animals have been scratching. Is that so that you're not doing any damage that hasn't already been done?
Yes, the rabbits make a mess of archaeology, but they scratch it out. And if you just look at the fresh soil, you can find charcoal, pottery, bits of iron slag, all sorts of things.
Let your rabbits do the digging.
Yep.
Absolutely good. Do the kids get fed up with you suddenly screeching to a halt in the car and say, oh, must have a look at that?
Very fed up. In fact, the introduction of the book, it comes to a close because we were on holiday, and I said, go for a walk. And they went, OK, fine, yes, but tell us, is the archaeology at the beginning, the middle, or the end of this walk? And it was all three. It was all the way along the whole walk.
Their worst nightmares come true.
Exactly.
Are they showing an interest in it now, though?
They're beginning to, yes. I think I'm wearing them down slightly. But no, when you go for a walk, there's something to look at. It's not just the wildlife and the scenery and the geology, which is always around you, but there's often bits of history just tucked away. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, we better just tell people a little bit more about the book. It is actually out now, isn't it?
It is out now, yes. Okay. Just in the last few days.
And is it in general distribution?
Yes, you can get it from Amazon, but you can also get it locally. You can get it in the Gaelic Museum here. You can get it in Hillbilly's bookshop, should be able to get it, and also in the tourist information, which should be there soon.
Available from all good booksellers near you?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Very good. And just how much does it cost?
It's $12.99.
Okay,
yes.
And it's a very attractive book.
It's the designer's done a fantastic job.
You're pleased with it, are you?
Yes, I am. Yes, they were quite excited because most sort of history books tend to be in a series. Because this is at the present a one-off, they could play with it. Right. So we had a good fun. Are there
plans to make it more than a one-off?
If it sells well, I wouldn't mind going deeper into each era. Because all I can do is scratch the surface, if you'll pardon the pun with the archaeology, because there's so much more in each era that you could look for without digging. But given the space, without giving people a heavy tome and an expensive book, I wanted it to be cheap, accessible, easy. So
Excellent.
it's a great starter.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you for telling us about it. And I believe you're going to make one available as a competition prize for Two Lost Radio.
Certainly, yes, it's all yours.
Good. Okay, then we'll have details of that coming up. But in the meantime, Gillian, thank you very much for coming in and telling us about it.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much.